Okay, we got all that done. Wow.
I'm not even president for 2 minutes and he's hugging and kissing me.
Clearly the better half has gone to Colorado, left her brother to be a smart ass. All right, with the curly mustache. I know. All right, Patty incidentally is doing well out in Colorado and enjoying herself and her granddaughter and just having a grand old time. I've talked to her a couple of times and she's doing good. So, soap. I brought a few samples up here. The ones over here are mine, the ones that I make, and you guys can come up and take a look later. You know, maybe I'll just pass a couple of these around for fun. This one, this is Adriana's, okay, and I thought this is a beautiful soap that she entered in the State Honey Show. This is mine. This actually won first place, and I think Adriana's was second, right? Third, okay, but yeah.
It's good, I want to wash my hands.
Anyway, I'm going to pass these around. You can make some really lovely stuff with beeswax, and one of the things that you can make just using a tiny bit of beeswax is soap. Handmade, all handmade soaps are way better than anything you can buy in the store. But soap made with beeswax has extra special qualities, which we'll talk about. So this is just kind of an overview of how to make soap. Making soap is intimidating to a lot of people because it uses lye. And lye, of course, is an extremely base, caustic substance that will burn you. And I know because I have suffered lye burns. Nothing serious, but you know, I've been making soap for a really long time. There's always, you know, there's always like the little drop or something that goes on your arm, and next thing you know, you've got a little red dot there, and yeah, clearly you've done it. But why make it? So it really is, it's a luxury product, okay? I use my soaps every day. I won't use anything else. I use them on my face if I travel. You know, I don't use the little soaps that they put in the hotel bathrooms. They're disgusting. I take my own soap with me. A pound of soap typically uses ½ ounce to 1 ounce of beeswax. So you're using a very small amount of beeswax and getting, you know, I'll charge $6 for a bar of soap. I should charge more. She charges more. You know, all my products are probably underpriced, but you get a lot back. I think I gave one presentation where I figured out, you know, you had like a couple of little candles that you were selling for $10 or $17. You remember that, right? Versus versus the same amount in a batch of soap, which you sold, you know, we sold for like $400. So you can make a lot of money making soap. Anything that adds variety to your product line will get you more sales. Because people like to walk into a place and see a lot of different products. If all you have on the shelf is honey, they're less likely to buy stuff. If you have honey and lip balm and soap and creamed honey and comb honey and chunk honey and candles, they'll buy a bunch of stuff. Adriana.
Yeah, what I wanted to add is that my problem is that I sell out because I don't have 100+ hives.
Right.
As Landi has. So when I run out of honey, people buy other stuff.
Yeah, and I sell out too.
Right.
You know, on a larger scale. But like, I have a policy where I don't wholesale any of my products because I'll sell everything that I make at retail prices. And actually make, you know, I mean, I buy some honey from Grant. I buy blueberry blossom honey, so not all the honey that I sell is my own. I'm going to say probably 2/3 to 3/4 of it is, but everything else is my own, and I actually make a modest living on 100 hives, most of which are nukes, not most of which, but some of which are nukes. So that's, you know, that's saying a lot, and it's because of the value-added products. So, right, they smell great, and they're super quality. The quality you just cannot be matched. So how do honey and beeswax make soap better? Handmade soaps are all naturally 1/3 glycerin. In commercial soaps, they strip out the glycerin to use in other cosmetics. Glycerin is hygroscopic, like honey. Okay, so it adds moisture to the skin. So handmade soap doesn't dry your skin anywhere near the extent that commercial soaps do. Putting honey in soap, this is my honey soap here, and putting honey in soap makes it even more mild and gentle. The beeswax does some interesting things too. It makes it gentle, it makes it hard and long lasting. So unlike, you know, something like Neutrogena, a transparent soap, that's like gone in 3 days. You take 3 showers and it's down the drain. You know, these soaps last a really long time. They're hard. And it does something in the soap making process to make it easier for the soap maker. It makes the soap trace faster. And tracing is part of the chemical reaction that happens as the lye and the water and the fats saponify. So they combine chemically, and if you have beeswax in that mix, it happens fast. Some fats like olive oil can take weeks or even months to trace, okay? Beeswax, not a problem. In fact, sometimes it traces too fast. Yeah. You know, right, she knows. You know, when you're trying to make something fancy, like that, you know, that's marbleized, like you don't have much time. You've got to work really fast if you have beeswax in your soap. And there's the exact same soap, actually. So what is it? It's a salt of a fatty acid. Okay, so unless you're a chemist, which I'm not, you won't necessarily know what that means. But how does it work? It's a surfactant, okay? And that's why we use it for washing, bathing, and cleaning. It is the result of a chemical process called saponification, and that's important. You don't have to remember the salt of the fatty acid stuff, but you should remember saponification. So there are 3 elements that go into soap. Some combination of fats, lye, and water. And when you put them in the correct proportions, the lye is all taken up in this chemical reaction called saponification, driven by the water, and what comes out is 2 molecules of soap and 1 molecule of glycerin, and no lye. Okay. So if you look at the ingredients, any ingredients, for instance, on the label, do I have one with the, there's one with the label. Okay, I put saponified fats of, because there is no lye in my soap. Okay, so, and I just talked about that. No lye in soap. In fact, what we do is we put a little bit of extra fat just to make sure there's no lye in the soap. We call it super fatting, and another term for that is you have a lye discount. Those 2 terms mean exactly the same thing. But you don't want, you know, you don't want grandma's lye soap, which is there to kind of scrub your skin off. You know, we want something that is emollient and nice. So, it sounds kind of intimidating. It's really not as hard as you might think, and it's a lot of fun. So what do you do? Okay, I'm going to take you through it step by step. Because it's a chemical reaction, everything has to be exactly the right amounts. You have to weigh things. You can't just, I'm thinking of John and his cooking skills. Well, I'll throw a little bit of this in here and some rosemary and, you know.
That's the secret with baking, but not soap making.
Right, exactly. Can't do it. Got to measure everything very precisely. So we weigh the fats and the oils, and we're going to talk more about which ones you pick in a minute. You weigh the lye to get exactly the correct amount. You measure the water. You combine the lye and the water, okay? And that's an exothermic reaction. It's going to get hot, and you set it to the side. We'll talk more about it. When everything has cooled to the right temperature, you combine those things, the fats, the melted fats, and the lye water, and you mix them thoroughly, okay? And after a little while, it's going to trace. When it traces, you pour it in the molds, and then you let it sit overnight. It'll continue to saponify and go through various stages. There's a gel phase, which is really cool, where the soap actually gets transparent in the mold and gets very hot. And then the next day, you can unmold it and cut it up into bars, let it cure. Typically has to cure, most soaps have to cure for about a month. My soap cures in about a week. Okay, so I'm weighing, okay, in this first slide, I'm weighing out the fats. Second slide here, I'm weighing the lye. I've got a special scale, a soap scale, you know, just for doing this. Third, I'm measuring the water. 4, I'm outside on my porch and I'm pouring the lye into the water. Okay, we'll talk more about that later. You have to take certain precautions when you do that. Here, everything is cooled in number 5, and I'm pouring the lye water into the container that has the soaps. Now, mind you, I'm making 20 pounds at a time. You know, you can do this and make like 1 pound. You don't have to have containers that are this big. In 7, you can see the soap has traced. It's gotten thick like pudding, and I'm pouring it in the molds. 8 is the next day. I'm unmolding it. And 9, I'm cutting it up. That's basically how this process works. And there's, you know, cut up bars of soap. I think it happens to be, I think it's this one. So, what's trace? It's a change in the texture, and the term arose because you could take a spoonful of the liquid soap and pour it over the surface of the soap in the pot, and it would leave a trace. And that's why we call it trace. It basically starts to be more like a pudding as opposed to a liquid. And once that happens, you can put the soap in the mold. Okay. So these are the tools that you'll need. You need a decent soap scale. That's really important. You want an accurate scale. Obviously something to measure the water. Spoons, if you're using, you know, essential oils or something, or colorants to make the soap smell good and look beautiful. A pot. A thermometer. I use a candy thermometer. This needs another battery. It doesn't have a pointer.
What is the thermometer in that picture?
Right there. It's a candy thermometer, and they work great, you know, it's the right temperature range, because you're basically looking for a range somewhere between 90 and about 140.
I use the ones with the beam. I use the ones that read.
Oh, a digital yeah. I'm old-fashioned. I just stick it in there.
Didn't have one and I bought that.
That's fancy stuff, yes, nice. Paper towels, bucket, a thick plastic bucket, a mold, and of course spoons and things. So that's what you need. Spatulas, very important. It's nice to pick a scale that has a tare feature, so you can put the pot on the scale, and whatever the pot weighs, you just hit tare and it'll zero it out. So, you know, the amount that you're measuring is in fact the amount of the fats that go into the pot. It just saves you a little bit of arithmetic. You know, it's not essential, but it's nice. And you pick a scale that's the size based on how much soap you're going to make. So my scale, you know, will basically weigh 60-pound buckets of honey too. So I'm good for just about anything. Fats. What fats go into the soap? Because you need fat. So fats are composed of different combinations of fatty acids. Olive oil is laureic acid. There's linoleic acid, oleic acid, and those fatty acids have different properties. So they convey different properties to the finished soap. If you learn about what properties are conveyed by the different fats, you can then design a soap that has the properties you want. So this soap that I have here is the same soap that Grant makes, because he commissioned me to design a soap for him. And when I was all done, I liked it so much that I asked his permission to use it myself. And he said, knock yourself out. So Grant and I make the exact same soap recipe. And what I was looking for in a soap was I was looking for something that was going to cure quickly, so he wouldn't have to wait a month before he could sell the soap, that would be gentle and hard, and really conditioning. And the fats that I used in my soap were, well, we'll talk about, and have good lather. So be a good soap, you know, do what you wanted it to do. So you can get a lot of information online, okay, about properties of different fats, but basically there's some that are in almost every soap that you want to know about. One of those is coconut oil. Coconut oil makes good lather, and who doesn't want a bar of soap that's, you know, you don't want a bar of soap that's like not going to lather. You want lather, right? So coconut oil makes nice big bubbles and fluffy lather that happens right away. So almost every decent soap recipe has at least some coconut oil in it. Palm kernel oil does the same thing. Palm oil makes smaller, long-lasting bubbles. So putting that in means you get lots of fluffy lather up front, and it keeps on lathering. So that's a really good thing. This recipe has both coconut oil and palm oil in it. Olive oil is great for moisturizing, but olive oil, you ever heard of Castile soap? Okay, Castile soap is 100% pure olive oil. It can take a month or more to trace, and it's not a hard soap, and it doesn't lather well, but it's really gentle and mild. So adding olive oil to a soap, that makes for really good conditioning properties. Now ultimately you want like a balance. You know, you want something that lathers, has conditioning properties. Castor oil. This soap has castor oil, and I regard it as like a secret ingredient. It not only does it make a hard, really well conditioning soap, but it makes it cure like lightning. So I can make my soap and sell it in a week, which is almost unheard of. You know, that's really fast for a soap to cure. And there's other stuff. I already told you what beeswax does. So, you know, you can pick all kinds of things. There's some good books that you can get as a reference, or you can go online. And in this slide presentation, there are websites, you know, referenced where you can, they actually have lye calculators. So you can plug in how much of various fats you want to use, and it'll calculate how much lye you need. Okay, so SAP is a saponification value. Very important in soap making. And what it is it's the number of milligrams of potassium hydroxide, not sodium hydroxide, needed to saponify 1 gram of a particular fat. So that's different from one fat to another. The saponification value of olive oil is different from the saponification value of coconut oil. Those are unique. Now, potassium hydroxide, we haven't talked about lye yet. Potassium hydroxide is not the kind of lye used to make this soap. This soap is made with sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide makes a nice hard bar of soap. Potassium hydroxide makes soft soap and liquid soap. This soap is made with potassium hydroxide. This is a soap that eventually Grant and I are going to take this recipe to Malawi for the villagers in Malawi, Africa, to make soap. Okay, this soap is made with potassium hydroxide made from wood ashes and goat tallow with a little bit of coconut oil. I'm going to pass it around. It's about a month old, and it's still pretty soft. You're going to see.
They have coconut oil in Malawi?
They have coconut oil in Malawi. They have lots of goats in Malawi. They have wood ashes. They would have to buy sodium hydroxide. Okay. And they would have to buy other fats. But this is something that they can make themselves without buying anything. So the trip to Malawi this year has been canceled. I found out at the Honey Show Tim is having some health, some various issues. So he's not going in March. We were thinking of going in March. But next time he goes, I'm hoping very much to go with him. And Grant will go too.
Where do you get goat tallow in Essex County?
That particular one, nobody was willing to give me sacrifice their goats for me to slaughter. So I didn't know what to do. But I looked up the saponification values, and it turns out that sheep tallow has exactly the same saponification value as goat tallow. So I used that instead. And I got that online. They call it lamb tallow, but it's the same thing. And it smells, Grant, you're going to see, that soap smells just like the Malawi soap that we made before. But yeah, that you brought back, but it's not as strong. It's not as strong because I cooked the fats with lemongrass, because they have lemongrass over there. It doesn't smell like lemongrass, but it doesn't smell like lamb chops either, which was a problem. Anyway, so most of the lye calculators convert potassium hydroxide to sodium hydroxide because as soap makers, most of us are not filtering water through wood ashes to get our potassium hydroxide. Okay, we're going to, lyediscount.com and buying crystallized sodium hydroxide as lye. Okay? So, yep, the sage.com or brambleberry.com, these are sites that have good lye calculators. Yes?
So, if you were to add beeswax, would that make it harder?
Yes. Makes it harder, makes it trace faster, improves the conditioning qualities. Putting beeswax in anything makes it really good for your skin, including soap.
And would that on its own actually be harder than it is now?
No, because of the potassium hydroxide. Yeah.
So
Kimmy.
when you use that, that's going to go away very quickly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I may just make a liquid soap instead. I still have to play around with that. If we let it cure longer, you know, I'm going to let it cure and see what happens to it. Maybe it'll get harder, but it's not hard enough. Kimmy?
Do you think that you could add beeswax to that soap and make it harder?
It has beeswax in it.
It does.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. It has a little bit of beeswax in it. It's,
Still soft.
yeah, yeah.
You cannot add too much beeswax because it will interfere with the lather.
Right, exactly. Lynn?
You're figuring out, you said like every oil has a different saponification. Do you average them together when you make soap, or how do you do that? Because it's not like you're just doing it.
It's, you don't average them together, okay? You calculate how much lye is needed for this fat, how much for this fat, and of course you've got the proportions of those various fats in the recipe. So, and you add them all up. You can do it by hand, but the easiest thing is to just plug it into one of the lye calculators online and they do it for you. It's a piece of cake. Right, lye discount. We add typically 5 to 8%. I usually add about 6% extra fat, just to make sure I don't have an excess of lye. I don't want a soap that's going to be harsh or burn my skin. I want a nice, gentle, luxurious, good soap. Okay, so just to give you an idea, okay, we're gonna design a theoretical soap here. So we'll put in 1 pound, 16 ounces. Okay, let's just try this. 6 ounces of palm oil, which will give us nice, long, you know, lasting bubbles. 5 ounces of coconut oil. So I should have great lather in this soap, right? I've got 11 of my 16 ounces are fats which produce really good lather. We'll do some olive oil for conditioning, 4.5 ounces of olive oil and 1/2 ounce of beeswax. 16 ounces total. Hard, mild soap with good lather. That actually, you could plug this recipe right in. You could go out and buy these ingredients and plug it in and make soap out of it. That would give you an excellent soap. Yvonne, you don't have to do that because this is going to be online. Thanks to Justin. Yes? Yeah, actually the cheapest olive oil makes the best soap. Don't get extra virgin olive oil, organic imported from Italy, you know, like I put in my salads. You're better off getting, what's the name of? Pomace, thank you, pomace, exactly. Thank you, Jim, pomace, which is the crudest olive oil. That makes the best soap. But you probably can't find it in ShopRite, so just get like the cheap stuff.
Carrados has it, or at least it does a lot of cooking because it's a cheap oil.
It's a cheap oil.
I think it's after the first press.
Right.
It's the second press.
Second or third presser. Pardon?
I get it at Restaurant Depot.
Restaurant Depot, yeah, you can get a lot of stuff. Okay. I get most of my stuff from soaperschoice.com online. So, okay, here's the lye calculator. I just took a picture of it from my computer. They've got pretty much every possible, every possible fat and oil there, and you just put in, okay, what you're gonna use. So there's my 5.5 ounces of coconut oil, 4.5 olive oil, 6 palm oil, and my 1/2 ounce of beeswax there. And I hit return, and it gives me a range of lye to use, okay? And 6% lye discount, I need to use 2.36 ounces of lye. Yeah, ounces, okay. That's how it works, really easy. And you can play around, it's so much fun. I mean, you can play around with different recipes and see how you like the soap. How did I chose 6%. Okay, what I want, see here, where are we? Here. Most people who make soap add somewhere between 5 and 8% extra fat. Okay, and it's that much less lye. So if you put in a little less lye, it means exactly the same thing. Okay, so that's how it's come across in the lye calculator, is we've got that lye discount there. Okay, all right. So making it smell wonderful. Like, you know, who wants soap that doesn't smell good? Our first attempt of soap in Malawi, where Grant and Tim were actually rendering the fat from goat intestines. And they made soap. I gave them a recipe to try over there, and they tried it, and they made some soap and came out with a very, very hard, brittle soap.
Just the opposite of that.
Just exactly the opposite of this one here. And you take a shower with it, and you smell like lamb chops. You really, I swear to God.
Was it hard because it was light heavy?
What?
Was it hard because it was light heavy? Or was it hard?
I think it was hard because when I made the recipe, I used beef tallow, and they were over there and I wasn't there, and they used the same amount of lye, but it was too much lye because they were using goat tallow, not beef tallow, and the saponification values were not the same. I think that's what happened. But, you know, it just strikes me that it would probably be a bad idea to walk around smelling like a goat on the plains of Africa.
Yes.
With lions and hyenas and, you know, I mean.
What you might sacrifice.
Might not be smart, so. Now here, you know, we have a lot more options, right? Because you can just go online and order as many essential oils or fragrance oils as you want. And they make things smell absolutely wonderful. So if you want to be all natural, right, get essential oils. This is just lavender essential oil. This soap too, the Forest Mist that I passed around, is a combination of essential oils. Or you can use, you know, fragrance oils are nice too. This soap smells like vanilla. Vanilla is a fragrance oil. You can't get vanilla essential oil. There's no such thing. But a lot of people like the way vanilla smells, right? So I have some soaps that are made with essential oils and some soaps that are made with fragrance oils. So you got to be careful. Some oils, particularly very like spicy ones like clove, cinnamon, can make the soap do weird things. So you've always got to test a potential recipe of soap before you start making it in like 20-pound batches.
When you test it, you mean like use it yourself?
I mean, make a small batch of like 1 pound to see how it comes out, you know.
What's the danger of in spicy soaps?
What happens is it does bad things to the soap. I'll show you pictures in a minute. It basically makes the soap fail. It'll curdle, it'll separate, it won't be good soap.
Does that include pine?
No, pine is fine. Yeah, pine is okay, fir is okay. Some of the citrus oils and like clove, cinnamon, some of the real spicy oils, essential oils, will make soap do weird things. But the bottom line is make a test batch first before. I have decided, right, that I wanted to make a big batch of soap and just gone ahead and wound up putting 20 pounds of failed soap in the compost heap. Okay, so don't make the same mistake that I did. I only did it once. Only once. Now I know.
Vanilla always turns from soap brown. Usually vanilla turns.
Yes, vanilla will turn, yeah, Jim, you are 100% right. Vanilla turns soap brown. That's why,
Vanilla soap, but it never happens. It turns brown.
yeah. That's why I put it in my honey soap, because the soap is brown anyway, because of the honey. Adriana.
The citrus soaps, the citrus essential oils can make your soap softer.
Yeah,
Because it's more acid.
right.
It's
There you
like
go.
an extra lie discount.
Yeah.
So you can play with the line numbers if you're going to use citrus.
But the bottom line is that anything that you're putting in there, you have to test it first before you commit, to a full recipe, which I think makes it a lot of fun. That's part of the pleasure of doing this. So my rule of thumb when I'm designing a recipe is I will add 1 tablespoon of fragrance, either essential oil or fragrance oil, per pound of soap. Now, if you did that with clove oil, the soap would curdle. It would be way too much. But most fragrances, that works pretty well. So you test it. And I like to put the fragrance in just before I combine the fats with the lye water. The reason being that fragrances release volatile organic compounds. And if you put them in too soon, while everything is really hot, you're going to lose a lot of that punch of the fragrance to the air.
Question about essential oils.
Yes.
I've seen them, when I buy my lemongrass oil for Swarm.
Right.
Your tiny little bottle. How do you buy your essential oil?
My lemongrass, my jar of lemongrass is this big. I buy them in bulk. There are companies, I think they're on this show, Camden Gray, labormuth.com. There are companies where you can buy essential oils in bulk.
Bulk apothecary is the one I use.
Which one?
Bulk apothecary.
Okay. Spell it. Apothecary.com? Okay, apothecary.com. Okay. Okay.
I'll write it down.
Okay.
But I make you spell in Spanish.
Okay. So anyway, you can get them, Charlie. There are there are quite a few places where you can buy them in bulk. And botanicals. So what's a botanical? Okay, here's my lavender soap with lavender buds, okay, pressed into the surface of the soap. I've got rosemary chamomile. This soap has chamomile petals in the soap. I've got, oh no, that's my lemon has calendula petals in it. So, any botanical that you use, I think Grant has a soap that has coffee grinds in it for a little bit of exfoliation, which is nice. And Adriana too has coffee grinds in this soap. Okay, and what, I swear, okay, it's coffee on top. It looks like chocolate chips. That would be good. No one eat the soap.
Your mango soap.
How about my mango soap? Doesn't have any botanicals in it, but it's got color. It has and that's a fragrance oil. The mango is a fragrance oil, which I love. So okay, so coloring the soap. Now you can do all kinds of fun things with color. I think Adriana does an absolutely beautiful job with the color. And there are different things that you can use. I like to stick with more natural colors. So these colors, for instance, these are all mineral colorants. So there's ultramarines, there's iron oxides, and they're all derived from the earth, Rutgers Okay, Maddie's probably going to go to college at Rutgers. Maybe she's going to go to college at Rutgers. Keep her fingers crossed, right? So if you go down to Rutgers, the campus, you notice all of the red shale in the area? That's called the Brunswick Shale. Okay, it's colored red because there's iron oxide present in it. And that's throughout that entire region.
Where is this?
New Brunswick.
I've never seen shale there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not down anymore.
No, it's, I used to do that. Yeah. Anyway, you know,
I
but
just know the hills of Morris County, western Morris County are high. That's not
there's a lot of iron oxide in the soils of New Jersey, in quite a few areas. But Somerset County, New Brunswick area, it's called the Red Brunswick Shale, is that formation. And look on any construction site and you're going to see. And it looks like, where is this here? It looks like it's this color, because this is colored with red iron oxide. You know, I could have gone and dug it right out of the earth, but some company, you know, did that for me and powdered it and cleaned it all up and made it really easy for me. So, but you can also use much more, wow, what did I do here? You can use some very vivid colors. Those are FDC colors, okay? They're artificially manufactured. And you can get some obviously really stunning effects using those. I don't have any experience, so I can't comment on them, but they're pretty. They are pretty. And there are micas. So the micas, I think, are like a cross between natural and not natural. I have micas in some of my soaps, some of these colors. Mica is a natural mineral, but the way the micas are colored, I think, are not. Yeah. But there's like a shiny. The soap that we passed around, that's Adriana's, okay, is colored with mica. And it has this shiny quality to it. It's very pretty. If you're using mica in the body of a soap, you have to use more of it. The mineral colorants are more powerful than the micas. So I typically will use the micas as a swirl. You know, color a small amount of soap and swirl it in. And it's a little more effective that way. It doesn't get lost. Okay, what were we saying here? I think we talked about this. Yeah, some people use crayons. I wouldn't recommend that. Gosh, did it get hot in here? Is it just, oh. Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. I'm hooked up. Okay, that's okay. Am I all right? Did I mess it up? Okay. Never mind. I'm not hot. I can't go too far forward. If I go past that thing, Justin will yell at me. Okay. I do have water. Okay. Okay. So you can't just like dump the color into the vat of either lye water or fats, because you'll just get these clumps. So you want to mix the color into something before you combine it with your soaps. I like glycerin. Number one, it makes soap even more mild. Just a little bit of glycerin. I'll put my colorant into, you know, it can be a Dixie cup or a yogurt cup or something, and mix it up nicely with a whisk until it's completely combined, and then put that in my fats. Okay. Some colorants are water soluble, some colorants are fat soluble. The glycerin takes care of everything. I don't have to worry about it or wonder which one it is.
Well, I save a little bit of, because I use the micas that dissolve in fat.
Yes.
Then I should scoop out some of those before mixing, and I mix.
Yes, the micas are easy to do in fat. Yeah. So, okay. I'm going to walk you through the whole process here. All right? Your pot is the tare. You know what a tare is, right? It's the container in which you weigh, if you remember your high school chemistry, college chemistry, it's the container in which you weigh anything. Be precise. Don't walk away in the middle of a measurement because most of the soap scales will turn themselves off after a period of time. And if you walk away, you know, to use the bathroom or something, or yell at the dog for barking, or you come back and find you have no idea how much you weighed. Okay. Once you've got all of your fats weighed, you put them on the stove to melt. Okay? Then you weigh out your lye. So you weigh the lye now, and you measure your water. I use goggles, safety goggles, and gloves, even when I'm weighing the dry sodium hydroxide before I combine it with water. And then when I need to combine with water, this is the trickiest part, okay, of the entire thing. And this is the part where people kind of freak out. So I always do this on my back porch. Do it outside. You don't want this in your kitchen. The reason being that once you add the lye to the water, it's an exothermic reaction and it causes fumes to develop. And those fumes, you'll see it rising from the lye water, are really choky, horrible. You don't want to breathe them. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it.
Respirate when you do this?
You know, that would take care of a lot of problems. I don't. I just, you know, stand on the porch and stand up. I hold my breath while I'm mixing this up.
We all have our OA respirators. So
That's true. We do have our OA respirators. I don't know if they're rated for, you might have to get a different cartridge, but it would work.
it's vapors, so I think we do the same process.
Organic vapors.
Yeah, well,
Kimmy. Kimmy.
Landi, well, we live in an apartment on the second floor.
Okay.
And so if I went outside to report, like to buy the lye and fats, how long would it be before I could take the results and bring it back upstairs? Or would I not do that at that point?
It would depend on how big of a batch you were making. If you were making, you know, I use a gallon of water, and it's probably about 20 minutes before I would consider it safe to, you know, to be hanging around it. Could you go on your roof?
No.
Mm.
It's a dark apartment.
Okay.
I use ice as 80% of the water. So for a liter of water, I'll use 800 grams of ice and 200 grams of water.
So you're cooling it down right away. You just don't want to
Right,
wait.
brings it right to 100 degrees exactly. So it's exactly the temperature you mix with the fat.
That's sneaky.
And there's no fumes either.
No fumes. Okay, so Jim has
I
given
would
you.
put my face right over and start sniffing to it.
Yeah.
It's a lot less fumes.
All right.
In fact, you do that when you use milk, because milk will curdle
Yeah.
when you mix it with the lye. So
Yeah.
you make ice cubes, well, milk cubes.
Milk cubes. There's a
ice
thought.
cubes,
Okay.
and then you mix
If you were
it,
making like a
and it-
goat's milk soap, for instance.
Right, then
Yeah.
it won't curdle.
Milk soaps are tricky. I wouldn't recommend it if you're just starting. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just thinking about reflecting on the heat that you were just sharing with us.
Right.
Do you think there's any value in combining these chemicals together in something else other than plastic? Animalized hair or something?
Well,
Resist the heat.
plastic is actually really good. I had once a thick glass container that I used for a long time to combine my lye and my water, and I put it on that table right there in the picture, okay? One day, I combined the lye and my water, and I heard crack. And I was like, uh-oh. And then I realized, you know, what the heck business do I have putting something that gets nearly 200 degrees, because that's how hot it gets, okay, in a glass container? Like, duh. I ran out, I got a plastic container, I, you know, put it under the rim, I went to lift the thing, and lye went all over the place. I discovered a new way to clean the slate floor of my porch. And it went on my pants and my socks, so I went running inside. The kitchen was right there. I took my leg, I put it in the kitchen sink, and I turned the water on, and, you know, I did get a minor burn, but I was very fast and washed it off quickly.
I keep white vinegar handy when I'm working.
That's a good idea. And always, always wear goggles. Always wear goggles and gloves.
So this is the step of combining the lye and the water,
Yes,
not the lye water with the fats.
right. We're not there just yet, okay? First you have to make the lye water.
20 minutes, the fumes have dissipated, and how about the temperature of the receptacle?
It's going to be warm, but, you know, I mean, I use just like that bucket. Nice, sturdy, thick plastic bucket with a handle, and, you know, I pick it up and take it inside when it's time to actually make the soap to combine with the fats.
You know the triangle with the
At that point, is the lye water caustic, like if it fell in?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And the soap will be caustic too until it cures.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So the plastic, you know the triangle with the number? The plastics that are safe for lye are 2 and 5. So those are
Good to know.
the only 2 that you can use.
Okay.
Because the heat will dissolve all the other plastics. And
So
yes.
if you pour boiling water into the container you want to use, that's a pretty good test. Okay, because water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and your lye water is going to get up to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. You have to stir it. Another thing, you always add lye to water, never the other way around. If you add water to lye, you can cause an explosion.
Hey, what?
Yvonne suddenly decided it was time to really pay attention. Add lye to water, not water to lye. You take your lye crystals, you pour them into the water. Okay, you do not ever, 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 ever do it the other way around. Okay? Because it can explode in your face. That's really bad. Okay. Add water to lye and you may die. So you don't do that. Okay? Just smoothly pour the lye crystals into the water. Take your spoon, hold your breath, stir it up. It'll only take like 5 or 10 seconds to get that all combined. Okay? I take my spoon and my lye container, I hold the spoon over the container that held the lye, walk back inside, put them in the kitchen sink. That's it. Okay? And all right. This is definitely the tricky part. I've got my safety goggles on, I've got gloves on. Okay? I carry my container that's got the lye crystals out onto the porch. I've got my water there measured in the bucket. I take the container with the lye crystals, smoothly pour it into the water. I've got a stainless steel spoon there. I hold my breath as I'm pouring the lye in. I stir.
You do all 6% of the lye at once?
No, that's different.
That's different. Okay. I'm stirring. Okay, it only takes 5 or 10 seconds to get it completely combined. Now I've got my spoon. I'm still holding the container that held the lye, so any drips that are on the spoon, if I hold it over that container or put the spoon in the container, they're not going to drip on the floor or my shoe or my foot, right? Bring it back inside, put it right in the kitchen sink, rinse it, wash it. And then this is outside, okay, and it's cooling off. It's emitting all of its caustic fumes. So be very careful not to let animals or children near this, right?
Oh, it's still outgassing fumes.
Yep, it's outgassing. It'll outgas fumes for maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, okay, just for the first like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's, I lock that dog in. He can't go out while it's doing that. Okay. Yeah, stings are the reason more people don't keep bees, and lye is the reason more people don't make soap. You know, we're beekeepers here. You guys can make soap. You got guts. Okay. It can burn or blind you. Basic common sense, you will be fine. I have been making soap for over 25 years, I'm going to say, a long time. All right, I'm still here. I have not suffered any serious injury. I've made, I don't know how many, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of soap. Okay. Yeah. Okay. When the fats have melted, so while you're doing this outside, your fats are melting on the stove. When all of your fats have melted, take the pot off the stove and let it cool. Kimmy is full of questions.
You put the pot directly on the fire?
Yeah.
Use like a double boiler?
No, because remember, there's only like half an ounce per pound of beeswax in there. There's really no risk that this is going to blow up or anything or catch fire.
Okay.
Yeah. And the beeswax, of course, is the last thing to melt, because it's got a melting point of, what, 145 to 150 degrees, which is much higher than any of the other fats that you're working with. Okay, so as soon as everything is melted, or even a little before, you know, like you can stir that beeswax at the end there and get it to go in. You take the pot off the fire and let it start to cool down. Don't overheat stuff. So you want it to cool. If you do it in this order, the lye water will be ready by the time your fats have cooled down. Now with a batch this size, 20 pounds, it takes about an hour and a half to get to the correct temperature. It'll take a lot less when you're making a small batch. So you're looking for a temperature range of about 100 to 120 degrees. Once your fats are at that range, you can combine the fats with the lye water and make your soap.
You can also do it ahead of time. You can mix the lye.
You can mix the lye beforehand. I did that once at an EAS conference, where I was actually demonstrating making soap, which was an interesting thing because there were workers on the campus. I forget where this was, but there were workers on the campus, and I had made the lye. This is a different EAS I had made the lye and put it out, the lye water, and put it outside to cool, because we had a classroom with a door going outside, and there were windows there, and I set it like on the sidewalk right outside the door, and all of a sudden here come this line of guys in hard hats. And one guy, as he's looking at my pot of lye water, and he's starting to go like this, he was going to kick it over. And I go running outside, stop, and save the lye water and the guy from his idiocy. And we made soap, and it was fine. But another EAS, I actually made it in my dorm room the day before and let it cool down there. And then, but then you still have to wait for the fats to get the right temperature too. So the idea is you want the fats and the melted fat and the lye water to be within about 20 degrees of each other to 30 degrees of each other. Doesn't have to be exact, but they should be fairly close to the same temperature.
You just said earlier everything has to be exact.
All of your measurements have to be exact. All of your weights have to be precise. Otherwise, you risk having too much lye in your soap. Kimmy?
So you let the fats come to a boil, or you?
No.
Okay.
I just melt them, okay?
Just melt them,
Just melt them. That's all I want to do is melt them.
and then you may cool them for an hour and a half.
Yes, because melting them means they're up at around 145, 150 degrees. They need to get down to about 115, 120. I go for 120. I've found that that's a good temperature, particularly with some of these marbleized soaps. If I combine them when it's too cool, it just traces too fast. Yeah, there's even more information here on the slides that you can read. Yeah. Okay, so next step. My lye water has cooled outside. My vat of fats has cooled inside. I take it into a room where I can lock the dog and the cat out, put it on the floor. I've got everything ready beforehand. I use a cordless drill to mix this up. You can use, if it's a small batch, you can use a, thank you, a stick blender. I can never remember that word, I don't know why. Or even a whisk, you know, just combining by hand is okay as long as you stir fast. So what do? We're going to pour, okay, the lye water. Well, first thing you do is I've got my fats and I'm going to add my fragrance. Whether it's an essential oil or a fragrance oil, I'm putting that in the fats. If I have any botanicals, oatmeal, dried flower petals, never anything moist, always got to be dried, coffee grinds, whatever, okay, I'm putting them into the fats first. If I'm coloring the whole batch of soap, I would probably put that colorant into the fats before I combine it with the lye. Once I've got everything in there in the fats, then I go get my lye water and slowly, right, smoothly pour the lye water in, kind of like working bees, you know, nothing jerky here, just nice and smooth motions. Pour the lye water into the fats, get your cordless drill and mix it up. And you won't have to mix all that long, but you're going to see at first it's just a liquid. And you say, this is never going to be soap. But you keep mixing and you keep mixing, and at some point, won't take long with the beeswax, all right, it'll start to trace. And instead of looking like a big, you know, pot of melted fat, it's going to look like a big pot of thin pudding. Yeah. And once...
What do you put on the drill?
What do I put on? That's a paint mixer.
Oh, a mixer?
Yeah.
A mixer, like a whisk?
No, it's a paint mixer.
A paint mixer, okay.
Yeah, you get it at Home Depot.
Right.
Yeah. I use those to mix up sugar syrup too. I have 2 of them. I guess I should have a picture with it out so you can see it. All the pictures I have, it's in the soap. So once it looks like pudding, like that, okay, you can pour it in the molds. Don't wait too long because it will get thicker and thicker and thicker. And if you wait too long, you're going to have a very large pot-shaped bar of soap. And just be careful with it, you know, don't splash, because this is still caustic. All right? This will burn you still.
That will take paint off.
Yes.
A table.
Yes, that'll take...
Ask me how I know.
I don't want to know, but I can guess.
Can you heat it up to make it softer or not?
Can you what?
Heat it up.
No.
And then make it softer.
No. No. You got to be there at the right time. You got to do this on time. Okay. Also, if you wait too long to get it in the molds, you won't be able to get it flat. And then you'll have like it won't, you'll have funny bars of soap because you won't be able to cut it up evenly. One will be, you know, one bar of soap will be like this, one will be like this, because it won't lie flat. But I put wax paper on top of the surface of the soap because raw soap exposed to air can develop a substance called soda ash on the surface, which looks like a film of white powdery stuff. Now you can incorporate that into the design. That can be a fun thing that you use. But if you don't want soda ash on the surface of your soap, you have to prevent the air from getting in. So I cover it with a piece of wax paper, and that gives me an opportunity to pat it down a little bit. Now remember, I'm wearing gloves this whole time. Okay, so I'm not getting any soap on me. And then you can do fun things like this, you know, create waves in the surface of the soap if you want. Where's my mistletoe soap? It's around here. Here it is. You know, more waves, and I put gold mica. I sprinkled a little bit of that on there. You know, this soap is layered with some. You can do a lot of fun stuff. Adriana uses bubble wrap. Okay, she presses bubble wrap into the surface of her soap, so it looks like, you know, it looks like honeycomb. That's kind of a cool thing for a beekeeper to do.
So the bubble wrap got over the wax paper. Or
What?
in place of the wax paper.
What?
The bubble wrap. When is that?
Oh, the bubble wrap is before.
Yeah, I actually,
No wax paper.
Use it on top of the,
You line them all.
I like them all.
Oh, there, that's a good idea.
Right, so then
So on the bottom.
on it.
Right, so when you invert it, you've got, then it's on top.
Otherwise, you can just press a strip on top, and then it will.
Yeah. So then we do something called putting the soap to bed. There's all these weird terms that soap makers use. We call it putting the soap to bed because if it's a smaller batch, people will actually wrap it in a blanket. The reason being that holding the heat in makes the saponification process happen better. It just, you know, proceeds more effectively. Because my batches are larger, it saponifies just fine without my having to wrap that soap up in a blanket. But if you're making a little batch, or if I make a test batch, I will. You know, I'll wrap it up to try and keep the heat in. And then it goes through this gel phase where it actually becomes transparent, which is pretty cool. It's, you know, soap is chemistry. I leave it in the molds for 24 hours, then I unmold it. That's this recipe.
Even with a small batch, still just 24 hours?
Yeah. It kind of depends on the recipe. Like this, you know, this Malawi soap, I went and unmolded this after 24 hours and it was way too soon. I could have left it in there for 3 days before unmolding it. So, you know, some of this is experimentation. But
And also, if you're using silicone molds, they take longer.
okay. Yeah,
They don't breathe that much.
that's true, they don't. But that's like, those are, I think, are silicone liners. No, they're not. They're something else. Yeah, I don't know what, anyway. So I take the wax paper off, cut it into slabs, then there are soap cutters to cut the slabs into bars and set it on, you know, trays with ventilation to cure. And it will continue to saponify. Okay, so it's not completely saponified just because it's solid and you've unmolded it. It needs to cure. Eventually all the water will dissipate and you will have, you know, pure soap. Depends on the recipe how long it takes to do this. Mine take about a week. A month is typical for most recipes. Some soaps like olive oil can take, yeah, way longer.
I made it once and I said, I'm not paying for real estate
Yeah. So,
Does it have to be ventilated on the bottom? Can you cover it to keep it from dust getting on it? Or just leave it out open?
you want it to be in the air. Yeah. You know, dust will wash off. It's soap. So what went wrong? Things can go wrong, and these are some examples. So this soap here has separated. You can see there's oil in there, okay, and like curds, all right? You're going to have to throw that away. That one on the top curdled, saponified too quickly. Most of these are either errors in weighing, so you're not being precise enough with your weights, you put too much lye in, not enough lye, or temperature errors. The lye water and the fats were too far apart in temperature when you combined them, or an essential oil or fragrance oil that did something weird. So that's why we test in small batches. Marbleized, okay, I'm going to go quickly now because it's getting late. Marbleized soap, I work at thin trace. So instead of 120 degrees, I'll combine it 125 degrees. And then I'll make like several little, there you go, little containers with the colors. And that's all soap. I've just colored several little containers. Put it on the surface, you know, pour a little bit from the big, we're making this soap right here. Pour a little bit in the mold, pour some of the, you know, the color on top, just drizzle it on top. More of the other color, the main color, more drizzling the secondary colors. And then at the end, right, at the end I'm taking like a spatula or a chopstick and running it through the soap. Not to mix, but to just spread the colors around a little bit. So, like this, and crosswise, until you get nice patterns that you like. Layering, right, I held up that. This is a layered soap, you know, with 3 different variations on color. Those are a little trickier to make fun because you have to wait for the bottom layer to trace before you put the second layer on, otherwise they'll combine, you know, they'll mix together, and you want layers. Rebatching is another thing where you take existing soap, you cut it up, and you incorporate it into a new recipe. But those are all fancy schmancy things. And, you know, you would want to experiment first with just the basic thing. So these are a couple of sources for suppliers and my 2 favorite books. I like scientific soap making, and the top one is great. Susan Miller Cavendish's The Soap Maker's Companion is a really good general reference for soap making. Really good. There's also a beekeeper named Elaine White who wrote a terrific little book about soap with a lot of really good recipes. It's an old book. I don't know if you can still get it, but it was a pretty cool one. And I think that's it. Thank you.